Forgiveness opened that door. I got what I wanted. My life is much brighter now. I tell you my story, how to get an abundant life.
What's going on? What's going on, good people? Thank you for joining us for another episode of Build Your Fort. I'm your host, Lynthius Cheney, and today I've got one of the founders of Brooklyn Tea. They've just opened in Atlanta. Welcome, Jamila Wright. How are you doing today?
I feel amazing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Anytime. Look, when we came to visit, there was a young lady who was downstairs and she was getting it in. She was painting, she was laying tile, she was doing everything.
That was actually our franchisee, Carrie Ann. She's my beloved Spelman sister. And she took up the mantle and the charge to help make this vision of bringing Brooklyn Tea to Atlanta a reality. So when I'm actually mostly in Brooklyn with the original first store with my husband. And so probably if you were here, most likely you saw Carrie Ann, but there were some nights I squeezed in a little bit of work time and put up some piping and painted some walls myself.
Right. There's nothing like putting in that sweat equity and building your own brand and being able to have your hands on it. I know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Brooklyn Tea, you originally started in Brooklyn within your boyfriend. You've now gotten married since then. How has it been merging dating to marriage to being business partners? What has that been like?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. I know it sounds counterintuitive to be dating and starting a business and then get married. But like, wait, why would you start a business before you have like the legitimized like marriage site? And I'll say a couple of things. One, I do believe there's no one size fits all relationship, right? Do what's best for you and your other person sitting across from you. And so for Ali and I, we knew that we had each other's back no matter what, right? We were holding each other hand in hand. This is a person who would never leave me without, and I would do the same, right? And we had a shared goal of empowering community. We had a shared goal of building legacy and communal wealth, not just personal wealth. Um, and when you have those uh, that high level mission internally and individually, it's no way you can let the other person falter, right? And so it's been actually super helpful in terms of our romantic relationship being in business because it's forced us to humble ourselves and to bear witness to someone else's idea actually being a good idea, right? When you work at two separate jobs, sometimes you're like the star of the show, perhaps. You have the best and brightest ideas. So when you get into a relationship, you can kind of be a little stubborn, right? And be a
Yeah.
little bit apprehensive to listen to another bright idea. And so what we got to see firsthand is get to test out those ideas that maybe we said heck no to, right? And seeing them manifest greatly and seeing people give great feedback for it. And then you have to think to yourself, oh, okay, this person has something to offer that's unique and different from my own. And again, let me humble thyself, right? And so it's been amazing in terms of making us uh, really treasure and value what the other person's bringing to the table.
So would you say that being in business and being in love has actually strengthened and grown your relationship?
I have to say it has. It really, really has. And that's not to say that it's easy. I never want to leave a conversation making people think that it's just easy and that it has no hardships or difficulty. Yet there are moments when you're going to be annoyed. We live, work, and play together, right? 24/7. COVID was not new to us in terms of being stuck together with your spouse, right? Of your partner. We were already doing that a year prior. And so everyone knows how difficult that can be, right? At this point. But what we got to do was really do some internal work and say, what is it about how I'm approaching a conversation, where it's tone, cadence, volume, poor delivery of an idea. What am I doing internally, or can work on internally to make it come across better to the person that I'm committed to? And so that's what we got to practice daily.
Wow. That is some good advice for sure, being able to communicate and work on ideas together. And like you said, people on the internet make it seem as though relationships are easy. It's not, it's work every single day. And
Yeah.
compound that with having a business. I think it makes it extra special. So kudos to you. So Brooklyn Tea started in Brooklyn, of course. What year did you all open that location?
Yeah. So we started online in 2017. At that point, we were just bagging up and blending teas out of our kitchen and living room in Brooklyn. Then we opened our brick and mortar in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn in December of 2018.
Got you. And what are the challenges that you came about when you opened your first brick and mortar? I'm sure it was scary.
Yeah, it was terrifying. So you're looking at two folks who don't come from, any wealth. There's no trust fund, right? I would say, there's not even a savings account, right? From our parents, right? So I come from an educator background. I taught first to fourth grade. I was a dean of students. I lead a digital marketer. And so we had the privilege of building a small nest for ourselves, right, in our savings account. And we used that completely entirely, wiped out of our savings, to actually have the seed money to open a Brooklyn Tea. And that was terrifying, to be people who had just started to build up some security for ourselves. Say, hey, if I should pass, my family doesn't have to struggle to put us to rest, right? And those are the things that we held dear, and we went against that, right? We went against that and said, for a little short time, right, we are risking it all, which we're risking our family's security within us, right, that we were building to build something greater in the future. And that terrified me. I cried. Um, it gave me anxiety. I definitely needed tea, right? To build up the courage to like see that through and question ourselves daily. I probably questioned myself about if this was the right thing for the first year, right? Because then there's the anxiety of, okay, we have this starting up capital that we pull from ourselves and from friends and family, but what happens if we have a slow month? Right? And sometimes we did. Sometimes we had to pay our staff out of pocket, right? And sometimes that cut into asking our landlord to give us an extra month on our rent, right? And so all these things compounded. So the first hardship was capital, it was money. I don't know a small business owner who would tell you anything different. The second thing was figuring out who we were as leaders. We were building the plane as we were flying it. So we hadn't sat down really to talk about what are our values, how do we see our team working in tandem with each other, and how should they see us. And so it wasn't until 6 months in to the business that we sat down and I created the core values, um, to really set the foundation and tone for common language. And so not having that in the first 6 months was strenuous, and it caused uh, undue miscommunication.
Mm, that is real. Thank you for that word. So then the pandemic hits. You've opened a brick and mortar. The pandemic hits. What do you do?
What do we do? I immediately get on Instagram and and basically having breakdown. And I didn't even realize at the time. I thought I was just sharing our plight, right? And being as neutral as possible. But we started getting droves of calls and texts and emails in, because apparently I came off more scared and fearful than I thought, right? And I can understand that now, that I was giving out what I didn't even think I was, which is all separate, I think, lesson in terms of business. But in that regard, it helped me to show that level of vulnerability, and to be that honest. We lost sales. Sales declined from 80, anywhere from 75% to 85%. We weren't really bringing in any revenue at that time, um, through our online. platform. We were an in-store, in-person experience. We had just had only 1 year in the game at that point. We turned 1 year ago, and then in February, that's when you start to really hear about uh, the in, about COVID really being a thing. And then we know in March, every in-store dining experience was canceled, right? And so
Mm.
our revenue was canceled in that same way. And we had to cut our staff hours. We refused to let go of any of our staff, but we did have to reduce their hours. We reduced store hours. Um, and there were so many days where it was just Ali and I uh, just holding it down in the store, an empty store that we built so much time and love into trying to make be a communal space. And now we're being told having communal space was a detriment to people's health, you know? It was hard.
Mm.
It was terrible.
Like, but then look at God. You have since then opened in Atlanta location, and I'm gonna attest to what it looked like because all I had to do was open up my windows and look downstairs and be so proud to see the streets filled. I mean, absolutely packed with people standing in line just to get an opportunity to experience your building, your business, and that was just phenomenal. I was riding down the street going to my parking garage. I was like, wow, we walked downstairs, we couldn't get inside, but it was such a blessing to see that the community came out, and I heard from one of your employees that people flew in from Brooklyn just to support you guys for the grand opening this weekend. Y'all were double dutching in the street, you all were having a good time, and people really support you. What did that feel like?
It was validating and it was vindicating. We had been in this lease for a year and some change. And you ever been in a lease where you're not bringing any income to match that? Um, you can only imagine with us what that felt like, how defeating that felt at times, how uninspired that could feel at times. And so to see everyone fill up the streets the way they did, um, again, it was validated, it was vindicated, and we felt like, okay, all the tears, all the stress, it was worth it to have this moment. It was worth it. And to see people still coming in the very next day and the day after saying, oh, I'm sorry I missed, right? We created something that people are sorry they had missed. And that feels special. Uh, and it's like an everlasting moment.
So let's talk about that. I'm a commercial broker. I don't think I shared it with you. So I do commercial real estate as well as residential, and I understand how challenging it can be for small black businesses to be able to get into a lease, first of all, and when you are a brand new idea or a franchise that only has one other location, them actually entrusting you with that space and being able to understand what you're trying to build can be quite challenging. And you mentioned something very, very real. I don't think everybody understands is that you go out and you get the lease, you only have so many months of free rent before you have to start paying. You still have to do your build out. Looks like that you all did a lot of the build out yourself, so that probably saved you some money. But even before the doors open, many times you are still paying rent. You know, what advice do you give to other people who are looking to go into a brick and mortar situation and they're a small black business? What would you tell them some of the ideal things they need to be prepared for?
I would say be prepared to pay 6 months of rent, no income. Like have a plan for that, whether that's a personal loan, whether that's already using Indiegogo or something else to forecast that cost. But never go in with just the amount of money necessary for a build out, because any and everything can happen, right? And in our case, we had shopped this store in November 2019, right? So a few months before the pandemic, right? And so we had in mind a, a plan of action that didn't take into account a pandemic, right? And so once that hit, the government basically shut down. Your local government officials were not in house, right? And so that slowed down all permitting, um, and that really put us on a different trajectory, one that we weren't. uh, planning for at all. And so it could be a pandemic, right? It can be maybe one of your partners pulls out. It could be a list of things that happen. And so you want to make sure if at all possible, 6 months rent, thinking about no income coming in. Another thing is thinking about um, when you are opening, what is the plan of action? How do you try to make up 3 or 4 months worth of rent in one day? All right. So what what is that excitement like? What is that um what is that like energy that you're bringing? What is that marketing to make people invest in you heavily, and so you can make up for some of that loss.
Yeah, great words of advice. Thank you for that. So I understand that community involvement, helping other entrepreneurs, are things that you are very, very passionate about in your business. What is it in Atlanta that you plan to do to continue on with that mission?
Yeah. So our plan partly is already enacted, right? We have local artists that are on our walls. That's a part of it to promote local artistry and creativity. We plan to be a place uh, for social gatherings, whether it's book club meetings, whether it's people or students from the Atlanta University Center coming in to learn about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Uh, the sky is the limit. The space was created to work in partnership with everyone near or far from us. So that's the plan.
Great. Well, Jamila, I appreciate you. I appreciate your business. I appreciate the fact that all I have to do is jump on the elevator, come right downstairs and get some authentic Brooklyn tea. It is a great atmosphere. It's a great place to gather, a great place to meet with people. And we appreciate you and Ali and your franchise partner for bringing Brooklyn tea to the Castleberry Hill area in Atlanta. What words do you have for us before we leave today?
So I would say don't be, I feel like this is uh, something we all hear, but we just have to have it hammered in and not being afraid to ask and receive help. You can easily fall into, well, I chose to take this on, so it's my thing to own. Uh, and there are so many people who are more than willing to be in a fight with you. And what we don't really understand is how much it inspires people, how much it makes people um, feel connected to something bigger than themselves in the same way that it has that feeling for us. And so to really lean into that discomfort with help with asking and receiving help, because it will save you from a lot of pitfalls. It will save you from crashing and burning. Uh, so just lean into it.
Ask for help. Don't be afraid. Thank you, Jamila. I appreciate your time today. And I look forward to coming downstairs again soon and getting some Brooklyn tea.
All right, Cynthia, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us even before the grand opening. I
Yeah, I
just
was
want to point
down.
that out too.
Soon as I knew the doors were opening, I was down there ordering what do I get? I get the coconut oolong with one of my favorite things, ginger. So I'm going to have to venture out and start trying some other teas, and I'm going to pick up one of the tea boxes. And yeah, another thing for you guys to know that they have tea boxes for you all to actually have the experience at home and shared with people for gifts, and they make great gifts. So I'm going to try that and experience teas in another way.
All right, sounds good.
Good, good talking with you.